Luffy and Sanji, Germa 66, and the Sweet Commanders debuted on OPTC Global on the 25th of February 2021. This celebration kicked off Global's anniversary, featuring big characters that debuted on Japan in late 2020. The characters that debuted in this batch include Nami, A Welcoming Embrace, Capone Gang Bedge, Assassination Plot at the Tea Party, and one of the Sugo-Fest exclusives of the batch focused on boosting all characters regardless of type or class, whilst also trying to maintain a high HP threshold through healing and recovering via recovery slots. Introducing Luffy and Sanji, a joint struggle underpinned by trust. In this series, we'll be traveling back in time to experience some of the older Sugo-Fest exclusive characters in their prime, aiming to show just what it was like to use these characters on their debut. I hope you enjoy the video, and without further ado, let's enter the Legends of OPTC. So thank you very much for checking out yet another episode of the Legends of OPTC, and we're looking at Global's anniversary now, which is awesome. The Global anniversaries were a massive part of the yearly cycle in Treasure Cruise. It was arguably the biggest celebration that we had, because Global never really had New Year's celebrations up until, of course, when we had the merger with Japan. So the Global anniversaries were like our biggest events of the year. So heading into this one, this was highly anticipated. However, it was kind of dulled down due to the release of Roger and Odin literally 2 months before this batch came out. Hypothetically, like if Roger and Odin did not release when they did, and they were just for Japan, let's say, this Sugo-Fest would definitely have a lot more credence behind it. However, because of Roger and Odin, like those units straight up were just better than this entire batch. There wasn't really much of a need to have these units outside of being boosted for events. So let's go ahead and talk about these units and see what we have in store. So this batch featured 2 rare recruits in Nami and Bedge, as well as 3 legends, Luffy Sanji, Germa 66, and the Sweet 3 Commanders. So we'll be looking at the other legends in next week's videos, but let's go ahead and have a look at the rare recruits, and then we'll look at Luffy Sanji. So the first rare recruit of the batch being Nami. Of course, this whole batch is focused around Whole Cake Island. So Nami here is a Psy Cerebral Striker. Captain ability doesn't matter. She actually resists 2 turns of special reverse when she's reversed, which is good, and also changes all orbs into recovery at the start of the fight. This is a very good mechanic, because just generating matching slots is always a good thing. So her special ability would reduce Bind, Despair, and Burn by 2 turns, and then give -1 turn of cooldown to all characters, and then Strength and Psi characters get a 1.75 times color affinity. The entire batch is Strength and Psi focus, so being able to use this character in a couple of different scenarios is good. That's basically all she does though. Nami really doesn't provide a hell of a lot going on, honestly. Like, it's really just cooldown, some utility, and she does have double special launch, which means that you can use her twice to get 2 turns of cooldown, 4 turns of Bind, Despair, and Burn removal, or you could use it over multiple turns to have, you know, 1 turn of an affinity boost, and then have another affinity boost on another stage. So Nami, she was okay. Moving on to Bedge. Bedge was definitely one of the rare recruits. He really was never that good. So he's a strength-driven shooter. Captain ability doesn't matter. He can't be blown away. And then his special ability would reduce chain locks and chain reductions by 7 turns, and then reduce any damage above 3,000 by 97% for 2 turns, and also recover 30% HP. So this is damage threshold. Essentially, if you're dealt like 10,000 damage, you take the first 3,000 damage as normal, but then the damage that would exceed the 3,000 is then reduced by 97%. So, like, you know, you take the first 3k, and then the 7,000 left over of that 10k hit is reduced by 97%. So either way, this is a good way to tank a very big hit, but the utility of his special really wasn't that good. Being able to remove 7 turns of these chain debuffs is kind of whatever, doesn't really like come into play that much. The health recovery is kind of nice, I guess. As for his potential abilities, nothing really too crazy here either. Like this rare recruit was honestly pretty bad on release, and no one really cared for this character at all. Let's get to the meat and potatoes though, which is Luffy and Sanji. So Luffy and Sanji here, I mean, this was one of the better legends in the game before, you know, Roger and Odin came out. Unfortunately, kind of, you know, outclassed this unit. Fighter free spirit in every single form. Luffy is strength, Sanji is a Psi unit. And then we look at the captain ability. So Luffy's captain ability says that if you are at full HP, then it would boost the attack of all characters by 4 times, 3.5 times otherwise, and then gives a 1.2 HP boost and allows you to overheal. So this allows you to, consume as many recovery slots as possible, overheal a bunch, and no matter if you're taking a bit of damage, it doesn't really matter, because if you're overhealing, if you're still at that overheal threshold, you're still considered above, 99%. You're essentially at full HP. So it does allow him to, maintain that higher damage. Sanji is relatively similar. Instead, he's a 3.75 times boost if you're at full HP, 3.25 times otherwise with the health boost, but he also recovers 1000 HP at the end of each turn with overhealing. So you can have, the auto healing from your sockets, you can have double Sanji to provide an additional 2000 HP, which allows you to heal quite a lot. So if you have a lot of recovery slots, you can start consuming them and overhealing, and then you get additional heal via this. In their combined form, they go all the way up to a 5 times attack boost at full HP, as well as still providing the HP boost, the heal per turn. So not really a lot going on. They're mainly just focused on a rainbow captain that provides healing, right? That's basically all they do. Their switch ability does reduce bind, despair, and paralysis by 1. They make recovery slots beneficial, and they change their own slot into recovery. We'll come back to this in just a moment. And then the special ability, changing all slots including block into recovery, recover 50 times their recovery in HP, which can overheal, and then become Luffy and Sanji for 3 turns. So the fact that even if they're a crewmate, you can still use their special to overheal, which is really, really cool. And if you're at full HP when you launch the special, you get a 2.5 times attack boost to all characters, otherwise it's only a 2 times boost. But this is where things get a little clunky, because you have to activate their switch ability to make recovery slots beneficial for 1 turn. Otherwise, you activate their special, they're not, like, the recovery slots that they generate aren't matching. They don't make recovery matching in their captain ability either. It just doesn't make a bunch of sense. So design-wise is a little weird. I will say, though, that the utility from their switch effect is quite good. Being able to have them as a crewmate to generate that bind, despair, paralysis removal every single turn is quite good. Luffy and Sanji, of course, have access to very good supports that can attach to them. So there are some nice things, of course, but they are a little clunky. Utility is pretty much non-existent, and even though they do generate an attack boost, they only give you the major attack boost if you're at full HP when you launch the special. So even if you want to use the special to heal back up to be at that full HP threshold, that's fine, you can do that, which would allow their captain ability to be at their max potential. But if you've launched the special and they're not already at full HP, you only get the 2 times attack boost. So yeah, design wise, there wasn't really a lot going on here. So for a big headliner celebration unit, yes, it is still a powerful unit in context with the other units that came out around this time, because 5 times captain rainbow is very strong. But of course, it's a dual unit. They don't have access to super class, super type, so they lose out on a bit of damage there. So overall, Luffy and Sanji, while it was a relatively hyped celebration, Goldie Roger just, was the real prize of this Sugo-Fest, because this was a Super Sugo-Fest. Roger did return on this Sugo-Fest, so everyone wanted to get their hands on that unit if they didn't pull them previously. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and build a team with this guy and try and use him in some content. Alright, so we're in-game right now with Luffy and Sanji. This is the squad that we have ready to go. So we're running that full, Psy team here with, Luffy can obviously become a strength unit, of course. So with our squad here, I think we should have enough damage to get through this without too many issues. And this is going to really show off what Luffy and Sanji are capable of doing with their dual unit switch ability. And it was part of the reason is why this character saw a decent amount of play when they first came out, but they did get power crept relatively quickly. People just fell off of this unit because obviously Roger existed, and why would you use Luffy and Sanji and switch every single turn, generate stuff, when you can just blast through everything with Roger? You know what I mean? Roger was just that guy. Alright, let's see what we have here. Let's go ahead and activate the switch ability here of Luffy and Sanji, which makes those recovery slots matching. Now, of course, we generate the full board of recovery slots at the start of the quest with the crewmate ability of Nami. Really good rare recruit with these characters together. We do need to get some stall on, of course, but this is going to be a good opportunity here to consume these recovery slots, because that is going to enable us to get quite a lot of healing into our captain ability. You can see there, look at our HP. Our HP is nearly almost double what it was before. So this is great. Let's go ahead and use these switch abilities again. And we do want to try and conserve these recovery slots, because we want to make sure that we have matching slots when we reach the stage 3 mini boss. In terms of using specials, we don't need to use a special till stage 4. So actually, we don't really need to do as much stalling as I kind of anticipated. We could probably just blast through here. Because I think stage 3 might take maybe 2 turns to get through, maybe 3 if we're unlucky. So let's see here. We do still need to make sure that we have enough stall. We have our HP is looking really, really good. So we are going to just take our time here. And then we'll go ahead and move on this turn right here. Can we get some more matching slots? We really haven't had a lot of matching slots. Either recovery or psi slots, of course, would be kind of nice. Okay, stage 3 is going to be against Raizo, of course. So Raizo here, he changes into a Dex type, which of course we can switch our Sanji into Luffy to make sure that he has type damage. And you can see that it inflicts us with paralysis, which normally is pretty bad. But by using the switch ability here of Luffy and Sanji, we can generate that matching slot and also remove that paralysis, which is great. So we can go ahead and hit our perfects here and see how much damage we can do. Hopefully we do solid damage against Raizo. Let's see. About half HP, so yeah, this is probably going to take 2 turns to get through. I don't see how we clear this turn. Yeah, this is just not good. Okay, let's go ahead and use the 2 switch abilities of Sanji. And then next turn we can go ahead and have the 2 Luffys, which should be enough damage to get through here. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and switch both of them into Luffy, so we have 2 characters that are strength with type advantage, and then we should be able to kill Raizo here. Alright, there we go. So, we move on to stage 4. Stage 4, we have old mate Luffy, and he is going to be an int character this time. I believe the final boss type changes into Dex, so we want to have both of our captains be Luffy. That's going to be important here. So we get inflicted with this special bind. There's some special reverse mechanics, which is why this Nami is going to be really, really good here. So we can use Nami, which not only removes the burn that we're inflicted with here, it also gives us the cooldown reduction. You see the special animation. She's crying. She's crying. And then we can go ahead and use the Brook. So Brook, as well as... this was a free-to-play Clash character that came out around the same time as Luffy and Sanji's release, I do believe. I don't remember exactly when the Brook came out, but he does work with the Luffy and Sanji quite well. He does have double special launch, so we can use him twice to remove 3 turns of Threshold, 3 turns of Special Bind, which works out perfectly for us. There's also a conditional boost against delayed enemies, which works again very, very well for us. And then we can go ahead and switch with one of our captains. And as I said, the final boss ends up type changing into Dex, so we want to have both of our captains be Luffy. So we switch with Sanji. We'll switch him back into Luffy next stage. So we'll use the Luffy special here, which is of course going to combine them into their dual form. And remember, we are at full HP right now, so the special ability of Luffy and Sanji will actually give us the magnified 2.5 times attack boost instead of just the generic 2x. So that works really well. We get the heal, and we get the full board of recovery slots. Okay, so we can see that, yep, that is the 2.5 times attack boost from Luffy and Sanji. And we are going to get the orb change again next turn, so we can just kill. Yeah. Plenty of damage there. No issues. Okay, so he's going to do some damage to us, but we still have plenty of HP, so that's not a problem. Final boss here, we have Okiku. So Okiku, even though is a strength unit, will actually type change into Dex, which is not a problem for us. And then there is Resilience, which is why we went ahead and brought the, the Zorojuro. So Zorojuro will enable us to remove that Resilience for us. So you can see that we are inflicted with Bind for our crewmates. You could also use a support to help get around that. But of course, Luffy and Sanji switch ability, we can just go ahead and change that, so that's not a problem. Let's go ahead and use the special ability of Luffy, which of course is going to transform him into the dual form, Luffy and Sanji. We are at full HP still, we still have the overhealing, so we will receive that 2.5 times attack boost. And we get a heal again, we get the recovery slots, all that good stuff. Then we can go ahead and kind of counter the chain debuff that we have here. You could obviously use the rare recruit Capone that came out with this batch, but you can get a bit more damage by utilizing the special of Wano Law, not only because we'll get the chain boundary, which can kind of counteract the chain debuff that we're inflicted with, but also giving us an orb boost for our characters, which works great. And then we can go ahead and use the special ability of Zorojiro, which is going to remove that resilience off of Okiku. And this should be plenty of damage to get through, but we can go ahead and add even more on top of that with the Nami special to give us a color affinity boost. And with that, should be very, very comfortable victory. Let's do it. Yeah, easy. Easy. So there you go. I don't remember how much damage that was, but was that like 43 million? Something like that. That was pretty good. Pretty good from Luffy and Sanji. So yeah, Luffy and Sanji, interesting unit. Obviously, not a lot of utility going on with their kit, but if you have the opportunity to fulfill the utility with your crewmates, then yeah, they can carry your team to victory. There's no doubt about that. But of course, the fact that they lacked that utility meant that they really didn't see a lot of play moving forward, because if the character doesn't have utility, focusing on damage, that can always be power crept. So that's the thing, right? So anyways, that is going to wrap it up for me for this video, showcasing the Luffy and Sanji with his ink effect artwork. So next week's episode is going to be a bit of a fun one, utilizing Germa 66. I think Germa was a character that actually saw quite a bit of play for a while after they released. Of course, they did receive a super evolution relatively early, and that definitely made them a lot better. So we're going to go ahead and showcase that in next week's episode. So hopefully you enjoyed this video today. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.